Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spotlight on Social Connection in Youth and Young Adults. This session will highlight the impact social isolation and loneliness is having on younger generations through a thoughtful conversation between youth and young adult advocates, thought leaders from organizations dedicated to youth connection, and representatives from programs designed to address loneliness among younger populations. It is my pleasure to introduce today's panelists. First, we have Frederick Riley, Executive Director of Aspen Institute's Weave, the Social Fabric Project, which connects, supports, and celebrates the people who are building trust within their communities, weaving a strong and inclusive social fabric. Next, we have Julia Esposito, who has worked as a Give Us the Floor facilitator since high school and currently works as a junior adult advisor, where she manages and facilitates multiple group chats on the app. Then we have Carrie Patterson joining us, Managing Director at MindUP, the Goldie Hawn Foundation, a non-for-profit organization founded to help children develop the knowledge and tools they need to manage stress, regulate emotions, and face the challenges of the 21st century with optimism, resilience, and compassion. We also have today Ruth, Mondesir, and Sofie Grasser, who are allyship and inclusion representatives on the all-curricular teams at Beyond Differences, a student-led social justice movement empowering students to become activists and change the culture of schools. And last but not least, our wonderful moderator for today's session, we have Valerie Grison-Alsop, who is the founder and executive director of the nonprofit Give Us the Floor, providing LGBTQ+ teens in distress with the peer-positive human connection that they are too often missing. Thank you all for being here with me. And Valerie, I will turn it over to you to kick off this important conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jillian. I can't say how happy I am to have been asked to moderate this session, because breaking loneliness, social isolation is really, really close to my heart. And we have just so awesome, incredible people on this panel that fighting every single day to end social isolation and loneliness. So I want to first share a few facts with you. In the Californian Department of Education conducted a study, and they found out that social isolation in young people can lead to immediate mental health negative outcomes, but they're also potentially severe consequences later in life. So we're talking about negative consequences of social isolation. It's not just about weeks or months or years. We're talking about consequences that can last for decades. So that's really something that as a society, we really need to work on. So in this study, they found that social isolation is linked to anxiety, depression, feeling of sadness, low self-esteem, lack of sleep. And it's associated also with an increased number of doctor visits, because people perceive their physical health as being bad, actually. And it's strongly associated in adolescents with stomach aches and headaches, with substance use and abuse, and with suicidal ideation. I want on that note say that there's a really, really sad numbers. It's like between 27, and you may all know that number, but 2007 and 2020, there were 54% increase in suicides in the age 10 to 24. So there's a serious cause of alarm. I mean, just a little personal fact, one of my daughters in a fairly small college, 3,500 students, and there already been 4 deaths by suicide since the beginning of the year. So we're really facing something we never faced again. So now I'm going to turn to the panelists and ask them some questions. So Carrie, Goldie Hawn founded this foundation, and when I was watching a video, she said something that really made me emotional. She said she had a dream, and the dream is bringing children happiness, to be able to create a new world. So can you please tell us what MindUP, what you are doing to help children from 3 to 14-year-old improve their social connection?
Thank you, Valerie, and it's great to be here. So yes, this is a dream of Goldie Hawn. She started the foundation nearly 20 years ago with the hope that, a preventative mental health program with the hope that we could build skills for children to build happier, more resilient lives, and really look at them, giving them the tools and the skills to have self-regulation and self-management. So to put give them the driver's seat to manage their emotions as they got older. And so a little bit about MindUP. So we we train educators to bring curriculum into the classroom. And I'm going to connect this to, social isolation and what we do know that helps based on the research. So, we start our curriculum with building community, building safe places, and building an environment where kids can be their best. And what we do know is when we do not build environments and relationships within the classroom, our children are not ready to learn. And therefore, they're already going to be isolated from the moment they walk in the classroom because they're going to isolate themselves. So right at the very beginning, we build this sense of community. And the other piece that we do know, and the research is we start with understanding our brain, and we know that our genes are always changing and our brain is developing. Our brain is developing in our teenage years too. So what can we do early on is, as educators and as parents and caregivers, what we do to create relationships and environments truly matter, because that's the nutrient to our brain. So think about that. Relationships and environments that we put our children in is a nutrient to our brain. If we think about that way, everything we should be doing is looking how we create those safe spaces with amazing relationships, environments. And this is not just, an educator's role or a parent's role, it's everybody's role. And the other piece of our curriculum that we really look at is kindness, compassion, empathy, perspective taking. And if you do all of these things, we do know, and again, back to the evidence and the research, that peers to peers show that they think their peers are kinder. They're more likely to speak up. They have stronger relationships, and then further, they're going to perform academically better. So the more we can do about put academics aside and really take care of our understanding our brain and really teaching around kindness, compassion, empathy, and perspective taking. I think we all have that part, but we know that we can change. We just have to think differently when we're working with our children as early as age 3. And that's what we do at MindUP.
Yeah, and I was reading also some of the evidence base that your program is working, and it clearly showed that the kids who have access to your program have a better scholar outcome, which is pretty awesome too. Like they become, because they're more involved, and so they want to work more, and they're getting actually better grades, which is pretty awesome.
100%. We say social emotional learning comes before academics, because if you take care of that, the academics will follow.
Yeah. And can you talk, there's also something about the emission of dopamine. Could you talk about that? It's like there's an emission of dopamine when you help and when you're being helped. And it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, so we know that when, and the research is there, whether it's, gratitude, like acts of gratitude, acts of kindness, does give your brain a dopamine like insert, which actually correlates to happier, more positive outthinking. So in the MindUP program, they'll put aside we talk about like the dopamine dance, like just listening to music and things like that in the classroom or at home. Things that really give that extra dopamine will put kids in a better mood, right from the very beginning. And so I think, Goldie Hawn talked about this in her keynote as part of this conference, is when you surround yourself around people that are kinder, that are practicing gratitude, there's this mirror neuron, right? So how do we also surround ourselves and make sure that the way we present and show up every day, we are actually contagious to the people around us. And so that's why in the classroom, we say, gratitude isn't a one curriculum and done, or kindness. It's actually actually an everyday act. And how do you do that every day? And if you're doing that every day, you are getting that extra dopamine that is putting people in better moods all around. But we do love to talk about like the dopamine dance or the dopamine acts as we teach our kids and our teachers on how to bring this into the classroom.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie. Ruth and Sofie, I'd like very much to hear about how Beyond Differences approach this fight on social isolation. And I would love to hear also your roles and how you're connected to the organization.
Hi, I'm Sofie, and I was what we really do is we do a lot of like curriculum work, and we're both on the team board, and we do a lot of work with writing curriculum that helps like middle schoolers, and like we try to like do a lot of intersectionality work where we try to like really foster a lot of safe spaces, and because we think that's like really important. And it helped us as well because we had a retreat for Beyond Differences, and we like almost none of us knew each other, and we're all different religions, races, ableness, sexualities, and yet at the very end of the retreat, we were all like at one lunch table, like couldn't even fit any more chairs in. Like it was like just a really nice space to be in, and I feel like that's a way that like you can really foster community, and it's a really nice way to end social isolation.
Hi, I'm Ruth. I'm also working with Sofie on partnership and allyship with Beyond Differences. And one thing that we also really learned at Activist Academy was centering the harmed and not the perpetrator, because there will be cases, and when they do happen, oftentimes it's easy to just tell the perpetrator that what they did was wrong and why it was wrong, but they could still go out and do it again, and just making sure that the people who have been harmed in those situations are taken care of, and making sure that they feel safe when they go to school is what's really important, because it can have an effect on their mental health, the way they're interacting with their students. It could even affect their schoolwork, and it's really important to have the safe spaces so, like Carrie was saying, that kids can perform well at school.
So can you tell us a little more about how the program is implemented in the school and what it consists of?
Yeah, so like Sofie was saying, we create curriculum, and 1 to 2 people. For example, I'm part of the Stop API Hate curriculum, and there's about like maybe 5 or 6 kids, and like there's different roles that we focus on in particular. So for example, I really work with partnership and allyship and intersectionality. Sofie and I do that, and so we would be collaborating with the other curriculum groups, that there's immigrant, refugee, disability, visibility, and the queer curriculum. And we really focus on making sure that one, intersectionality is at the forefront and it's present, and so that people are able to understand that you can be a part of different communities and have different identities, and also like highlighting those differences can make us more collaborative. And also, like Sofie was saying, at Activist Academy, that's one really good example of that. And then also with that curriculum, you'll have kids working on policies, either policies they want to change in the school or that they want to add, or they'll be working on art projects so that there's an art component to the curriculum when it's sent out to schools and stuff like that.
Great. So how do you relate to that issue? Did you experience social isolation yourself?
Yeah, I definitely did. When COVID happened, my dad's a firefighter, so I was locked down for a lot more time than like the rest of my family because he's like a first responder. So I had a lot more close contact with COVID, so I didn't see anyone for like around 4 months, like besides like my immediate family, which was really insane. So I definitely felt very distant from my peers that like weren't taking COVID as seriously as my family was. So I definitely felt very isolated, and it just, now that I work with Beyond Differences, it gives me more of a passion to end social isolation because I know what it like is, and I know what I know that I've been through it. So it definitely helps that I've had a experience with social isolation to end it, even though I would never want anyone to be socially isolated.
Well, thank you very much, Sofie and Ruth. Julia, that's going to be your turn. So Julia and I know each other pretty well because she's been a part of the Give Us the Floor and spokesperson for a while. She's one of our, I think, longest members. So Julia, can you please explain to the audience how Give Us the Floor is trying to end loneliness for LGBTQ teenagers?
Yeah, of course. So a main goal of Give Us the Floor is to create this supportive peer-to-peer community among youth, and specifically among LGBT youth, as they often are the ones who really need a lot of mental health support and might feel even more isolated due to their identity. So over the time that Give Us the Floor has been running, we've been able to support over 8,000 youth ages 13 to 19 through the use of supportive group chats. And these supportive group chats are facilitated by trained teenagers who do a great job of helping to create this community within these chats and really give these teenagers a chance to express themselves and speak with others similar to them. And we've also found some really awesome results from these supportive group chats, including that after a month in using a group chat, 83% of participants have found that the group chats helped help them deal with their stressors in their daily lives. 85% felt less lonely, and 77% felt a little bit better about themselves. So we've definitely seen that the group chats help a lot. And I've personally really enjoyed my time working in them and being able to interact with these teenagers and help them through their hard times.
So could you please tell us how was your experience at the beginning? What the supportive group chat brought you, and why you joined that program?
Of course, yeah. So for me, I actually was sort of looking for something exactly like Give Us the Floor when I was in high school, because I was struggling a little bit with social isolation and with mental health, and I wanted to see what can I do to sort of contribute and help this issue and make things better for other teenagers. And then I came across Give Us the Floor, and I found this opportunity to actually sign on as a facilitator. I started actually as a group member myself, meaning I was participating in these chats. I found it super useful because often if you're just sort of stuck in a bad headspace and you don't really know who to turn to, just having an option of a group chat of people who are willing to support you is amazing. And especially because a lot of these people in this group chat, they're not people who you know personally. So it almost allows you to feel more comfortable sharing any sort of issues or any sort of things you might be struggling with. So it helped me a lot. And then because of how much it helped me, I felt very passionate about becoming a facilitator myself, helping to lead a group, sending questions of the day, really building a community online between these teens.
Wow, thank you very much. Very, very clear. And last but not least, I went through age, starting by the younger one and going to ask question to Frederick.
Well, how do you know how old I am, Valerie?
Yeah, I was not talking about the people who joined.
I'm just teasing you.
I know. I would guess you're a bit older than Ruth, Julia, and Sofie, let's say. But I'm not sure between Carrie and you. So I wouldn't take that risk.
I'm going to say I'm younger, Frederick. Just going with it.
Yeah, okay. You can have it, Carrie. You can have it. I'll never ask you your age, okay?
So let's go back to the subject. So Frederick, you're the executive director at Weave. I have to say, I love that name. And when I was researching a bit on the organization, I saw that the members of your community are called Weavers, which I found it expressed so much what you're trying to do and what you're actually doing. So could you please explain to us how Weavers build social connection and help the other feeling valued?
Yeah, our work at its core is about how do we build our nation's social trust. We believe that trust begins to tick away at our democracy, our financial systems, life happiness, expectancy, and so many other things that trust is at the core. And what our weavers do, and if you think about knitting, it's all these different threads to come together to create something bigger. And what weavers are doing around the country they are seeing an issue in their community, but they aren't just going to attack it on their own. They're pulling all these different threads from their community to knit together solutions to build a better tomorrow. And so what we believe is they're fighting social isolation all through service. And so service is a way to not only work on really important issues, but also a way to build bridges, but also to connect a community. We believe that when people aren't connected in a community, they don't trust. And when people don't trust, it's what we see happened at our Capitol January 6th. So we are on a crusade to build trust in our weavers and trust is built in local communities. And so weavers are on the ground doing this work. Our commitment for young people, especially young people on college campuses, Carrie talked earlier about brain development. Right now, 43% of adults, millennials and above, if you say, do you trust? They say they don't trust the systems and their neighbors can't be trusted. But if you talk to young people right now on college campuses, they don't trust the systems. They don't trust each other, but they trust themselves. Brain development still goes on to about 26 or 27. And so we're working as an inspiration factor on college campuses where we're taking young people who look like them in the same demographics because it produces identity development so they can see themselves in those young people that are speaking to them. And we're telling them, hey, you can be the burden bearers to go solve the issues in your community. Go pull everybody together. It's up to you. And in that particular act, we believe that we're helping to end social isolation through service.
Thank you. Could you please give us some examples of what issue they are tackling?
So there are a myriad of issues, but I'll give an example. We have when we started the college speaker series, we took a group of younger weavers. We took Judy Mom from LA, who came to this country as an immigrant from Cambodia and just said that he wanted to make life better for immigrants, but he loved to volunteer. So he would go to a soup kitchen and serve food on the weekends, but decided that he needed to go beyond putting food on a plate. And he wanted to understand the plight of the people who were receiving the food. So he'd serve food for 2 hours and then spend another hour having conversations with the families that were there so that he could help point them into the direction of support. And then we have people like Darius Baxter, who grew up in a housing project in Southwest DC, went to Georgetown, got a degree, and decided that if he was going to be the burden bearers to bring everybody in his community forward. So he got a degree, moved back to the housing project, and has become like the burden bearer for folks there, providing tools and resources, funding, financial literacy, and a myriad of things, all because he saw the issue and decided that it was up to him to solve it. And so weavers are doing all sorts of issues like that all around the country, big and small.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much, all of you. I think now it's time to, do we have any questions from the audience for our panelists? Let me see. Okay, so I see. Okay, so I see advice for those questions. Advice for those who get involved in this space. So I'm not sure I understand, Gillian, sorry. You said advice for those who wanted to get involved in this space. In what space? In V Weavers? Thank you for coming.
No, all good. I was trying to type so fast and I realized I could just go on and talk to you all. No, thank you so much. And we're going to open it up for some more questions that are coming through. But as a first one, I saw somebody ask, what advice would you give young people today who want to become a part of the solution here?
Okay, Frederick.
Open the floor.
Yeah, good. Frederick, what advice would you give?
I think the advice that I would give is to find, and if you don't know where to start, is to find an anchor organization that is supporting folks on a journey to do something similar to what Sofie and Carrie and Julia are doing, or what Ruth is doing. Like, there are organizations that have tools and resources. At Weave, We have an online community that you can sign up for that connects you with people just like you all around the country that are doing similar projects. We have tools and resources, a section that'll help you get started and show you how to get started in a project in your community. And so there are a ton of resources out there and a lot of people that can help and guide. And so I would say do a quick Google search, find somebody who's doing that, and then anchor in and then go out and start working.
Yeah, I was going to say Google search is doing a pretty good job actually at helping you find organization that can be a good fit for what you want to do, definitely.
Yeah, I would say, and the students or the young people on the panel probably can answer this a lot better, but what I do know is you have to advocate for yourself. So you are your best advocate. I always say when I'm talking to young women, in business, you're the CEO of your own life, right? So what is it that you want? And then you go out and seek it. But number two is if there's something missing, you're a student in a class and your teacher is not doing what they need to be doing, like advocate for the other students in your class, especially if you have that opportunity. So think about what you want. Know that you're your best advocate. You can't expect your teacher, your parent, even though they can help, but think truly about what you want and step up to that challenge. And also challenge adults, because we might think we know what you want, but we don't. So advocate for yourself and challenge us adults to help you get what you want.
Yeah. So we have a great question that our young people on the panel needs to answer. And so quickly, please, like 30 seconds, each of you, and we'll start with Julia because she's just on the left of my screen. What would a connected world look like for youth? And how would the work look differently than today?
For me, I sort of see it as everyone feeling comfortable to be able to speak and express themselves as they wish and not having to worry about sort of like getting attacked. Or I know the internet can be very, hostile at times. So definitely a world where everyone feels comfortable just expressing themselves and feeling like they're a part of some larger community.
Thank you. Sofie?
I'm definitely going to have to piggyback off that because that was such a good answer. But I think definitely all of that. And I'd also say that like every like young person's like authentic self is celebrated and like the way that they can just be who they want to be. And I feel like that would look a little differently from the world today because I feel like some people are just trying to hide themselves. And I feel like a connected world would truly look like anyone can just be however they want to be.
Thank you. Ruth?
I think being able to be visible and being allowed to have a complex identity and would be super important, just because I feel like we have a bunch of labels in our culture and it's so easy to say, no, with this person you have to stay in this box, you can't ever leave it. And I feel like that can be so restricting, so it's easier to hide and just say okay and go with the flow, but allowing people to be their complex individual selves and being able to celebrate that, because that's important. Celebrating those differences is what will bring us together, I think.
Awesome. So last question, and I'd like that each panelist answer. We're going to start with you, Ruth, this time. So what is one thing you would like to leave our audience with? If you have one message you want to give to the people that are listening today, what would that be?
Go out there and find what's missing from your community and really start advocating for yourselves. Learning that not only you have a voice, but that you're able to use it and use it for change and good. You should most definitely do that. It was really intimidating for me to do that, given that I'm only a junior, but I started doing it from a young age and practicing being able to hear my own voice and being able to utilize it to help other people has been really important. And also, like, if you're ever looking for somewhere to join, especially as a high school student, maybe in middle school, join Beyond Differences, apply. I mean, sometimes it'll take a couple of tries and that's okay. But, programs like Beyond Differences can really help, because not only are you connected with other teens possibly living in your area, but just across the country. So being able to hear different perspectives from people. So having a willingness to learn, being able to find your own voice and utilize it is something I think is super important.
Okay, thank you very much. Sofie, one thing you want to leave with today with the audience?
I would definitely just say, like, get involved, like, kind of what Ruth said, like, join Beyond Differences, like, just become, like, connected to, like, your community and, like, other people's communities, like, definitely embrace intersectionality, and I think that that's, like, a really important thing that everyone should really embrace, so that is definitely my one thing.
Thank you. Julia?
My one thing would be to remind everyone that they're not alone. I think that's something I struggle with a lot, is feeling like, oh, I'm going through all of this, I must be the only one. But then when I like look up YouTube videos or speak with friends and realize, oh, I'm not the only one dealing with this like social isolation, it suddenly makes me feel so much more connected and so much less alone. So yeah, that's what I would say. You're never alone.
Good one. Frederick?
I would say that I would leave that there's an economic, a democratic, a health and vitality of our nation imperative right now for us not to make sure that young people are connected and not living isolated from the greater world. Right now, having them connected is teaching them about and helping them to become the leaders who they will one day become, because this is the country and the world we'll leave behind. And so if we don't help pique the interest of them being connected to a greater society and what that means for our nation's trust, Carrie said earlier, brain development takes in and we might as well all move to Mars. And so I believe that it makes the most sense to make sure that young people are at the center of all of this right now, because this is the country and the land that they will inherit it. And it will affect our economy, our democracy, and all those other things. So get them involved and get them involved fast.
Thank you. And Carrie, to close this panel.
Well, everyone did such a great job, but what I would say is mental fitness is a priority. It's a priority just like physical fitness, physical health. And so let's make mental fitness a priority, something that we're comfortable talking about so that people know when to ask for help. And it's never too late to try, right? We start with ages 3 teaching our kids. So let's start early, make it a priority, and do things every single day that contribute to our mental health, whether that is taking a brain break, as we call it, MindUP, or doing acts of kindness. But mental fitness is important, and we need to start early so that we can be on the prevention side and not on the crisis side.
Thank you very much to all of you, definitely.
Thank you so much, Valerie and Frederick, Carrie, Sofie, Julia, and Ruth. It was incredible to hear from all of you. I think, we really hit it from the individual level and our brain health to the community level and our schools. And Frederick really, bringing us to the societal level and thinking about, what does our future hold for us as a society. So thank you all so much for enlightening us today with your remarks, and especially for our courageous youth. You are our future, and we're so glad to have you here with us today.